Bones are amazing things. They hold us up. They support us. They make us strong. But bones have other uses. In the past, bones were thrown by diviners, seeking out the mysteries of the future. Now the bones are cubes, made of plastic or resin, but they still reveal things to us. As they fall from our fingers and rattle across the table, the story becomes clear. Welcome to Bone Throwers Theater, an RPG actual play podcast.
Hello and welcome to Bone Throwers Theater. It is time for a commentary episode for our one-shot special of Fate Accelerated, the 2600 Club. I'm Jordan.
I'm Johnny.
I'm Jeremy.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Aaron.
And you guys
sound so defeated.
So I really want to have one last thing at the very end where Eugene goes, "Should have listened to my paw and never trust them over there."
Those townies. So the title of the one-shot was the 2600 Club. And Aaron keyed in on what that was supposed to be pretty early on.
Yeah, I wouldn't have got that.
No, and the only reason I know is because there's a quarterly magazine called 2600, the Hacker Quarterly, that's a tech-related magazine from the 80s. Phone freaking was what it was called.
Yeah.
Hacking the phone systems.
Yes. I just read a book called Exploding the Phone, which was all about phone freaking.
Okay.
And so the premise of the story was that there was a Freddy Krueger-style serial killer who was killing teenage phone freakers over the thing. And then it evolved into a cult that was trying to move into this town to take it over. And then the book mentioned a town, I think it's in Tennessee. I think it's called like Oak Grove or Oak Mountain or something like that.
Both of those are in Tennessee, yes?
Yes. And it's literally a town that was started in the 1940s as a secret city for the Manhattan Project.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
And it was also big on phone freaking because it was one of the few remaining call exchanges that could be phone freaked.
Okay.
So it actually became like a major place for freaks to go and live and stuff like that. My original idea was to have you all being students in the school for the blind, but then I decided that would be even harder to GM.
What do we see? Nothing. Crap, I keep forgetting I'm blind.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been a very interesting experience, but it would have been hard to do. So I settled on you all being students in a regular school, and the intention was that you were going to try and solve the death of James and Faye, and get hooked up with the local phone freaking group that's called the 2600 Club.
Yeah, we didn't go there at all.
No, definitely not.
Well, it's by chance how we decided to answer those questions at the beginning.
Yes.
So, which tailored all of our characters to be these kind of aggressive,
Thuggish, brutish.
physical characters.
Well, I thought that, like, with his interest in young ladies, Barry would be trying to go and console Marie, but then you went as well, and so it was like, this could play pretty well, and I tried to lay some breadcrumbs, and they got ignored.
So I'm assuming James was a member of the 2600.
James was the president of the 2600.
Which is what we were supposed to find out early on, is somehow. Okay.
Because, well, if it had got to his funeral, then Roy was going to place a Captain Crunch whistle on his gravestone.
Which, I think we were off air when we talked about
the Captain Crunch whistle.
I guess is it technically phone freaking what they did in Hackers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of what they
did. The movie, Hackers, and then also they used the Captain Crunch whistle tone reference in Ready Player 2 as well. So
so the audio that you heard, I'll read off the list of noises because they were backmasked. I wanted to try and pull in as many like satanic panic tropes into the story as possible. So like the Green Star cult was based off of two things. It was based off of Manson's because Manson was a doomsday cult. The family was a doomsday cult. But then Green Star is a real program that AT&T ran for about 7 years in the 60s and 70s where they literally recorded thousands of phone calls. And so Jerome Stewart was the concept was that he was actually a disgruntled AT&T employee who had left, and he had been on the Green Star project, and he named his cult after that.
Huh.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, there was a lot of academics that went into this. But anyway, the list of horror noises.
None of it got used.
Yes, none of it got used. It's probably one of the deepest research games I've done.
I don't know, but before you read that list off, even though none of that stuff got used, I still like the dynamics of our characters.
Oh yeah,
It was
oh, yeah.
fun.
Yeah,
It was
Yeah.
fun.
So first was Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you. We never used that sound. That is actually the first words transmitted over a telephone. What hath God wrought, which was the first words transmitted over a telegraph. Blue box, red box, black box, beige box. The star is green and it burns low on the horizon. A Green Star reference. John Draper is closest to God. His tone is true. John Draper was the freak who figured out that you could use a whistle. And he became known as Captain Crunch. That is followed up by the next phrase, which is Captain Crunch is waving farewell, which is a nod to a rock and roll song. Berkeley Blue has eaten his apple. Berkeley Blue is the pseudonym that Steve Wozniak used because he was a phone phreaker who was actually generating blue boxes. He would leave notes like the "What hath God wrought" note inside his blue boxes. So what you all found in the woods was supposed to be a Berkeley Blue box that the Green Star cult would be using to try and hack into the system.
Mm-hmm.
They look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside they're filled with bones or scripture. Please put Olympus on the line. 632-9999. That's a phone number that was used for calling control. Like if you needed assistance, you could call that and the operator would help you. Crossbar, pulsar, click, click, click. Pulse bars and pulsars are different kinds of phone connections. We are a government organized monopoly, meaning AT&T. And then a history lesson. AT&T ran Project Green Star from 1964 to 1970. It was a predecessor to that was Project Shamrock, and Project Shamrock is the grandfather of surveillance. Eat your breakfast, find the key to the frequency. The Bernays are going to take over the world. The Bernays were a subgroup of phone phreakers, like basically a phreaking collective. Audubon is one step away from bringing the world down. Audubon is the phone that I mentioned at the end with a whole bunch of extra buttons. It was the military's special phone system. If the blue box brings you time and space, what brings reality? That's a Doctor Who reference. Telesis West, 9X South, different phone companies after AT&T was broken up in the early 80s. And then the Illuminatus kisses the Black God. Just thought it sounded cool.
Nice.
So yeah, those were the horror noises that got played in different parts whenever you guys were speaking on the phone with members of the Green Star cult. I had fun with the cars in this because it was fun to look up cars that would have been era appropriate.
Yes.
I thought that was interesting as well. Jeff and Aaron, you guys immediately latched onto the car. I was like, why are you guys latching onto the car?
Because it was something about the character. We were introduced to this character, James, that none of us knew anything about him. So it was like, all right, what about him? What do I like about James?
His car.
His car. James has a nice car.
And then Jordan kept describing cars. I was like, what's going on?
So the Datsun was always supposed to be in the game as like cult members following the group.
People
around.
loved Datsuns.
Yeah.
Cheap.
Okay.
I need to do some more research on this, but I think Datsun is actually somehow related to Nissan.
It is.
Yeah.
Split off into Nissan.
Okay.
Anyways, I really like the dynamics of these characters.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I love these two.
I love
those two were great.
And then if there was going to be an award for role playing, I definitely would give it to Johnny. Because oh my gosh, there's so many times where I was like, as a player, like, wait, what did he just say? And then it was like, oh, that's in character. So Silas is like, say that again, Eugene.
Yeah, that was great.
There was a character named Eugene in my notes.
Nice.
Eugene Wright, the AT&T special investigator. Yeah, you guys zagged so hard.
Well, I mean,
I'm sorry.
these characters were great.
You
I mean,
put me in Tennessee mountains. I had to be a hillbilly.
So I was going to comment. There's actually a movie. It's a documentary that explores hillbilly perception in media and where that hillbilly persona came from. It's a pretty good.
It's very similar to the idea of the rednecks, because rednecks in the original
Rednecks near?
No.
You did hear rednecks,
Yeah,
right?
I did, yeah.
So rednecks in Appalachian culture
Yeah.
comes from the idea of coal workers
Mm-hmm.
because they were pro-union, and to be as an organizing thing, they would tie red bandanas around their necks.
Yeah.
So basically, you weren't a redneck if you were a union buster coming in to work the coal mines.
Yeah.
And so it's like it became a thing to kind of denigrate like this idea of organization of workers.
Huh.
So, and then it was such a success as a smear campaign that we still use redneck today as a bit of a slur against people who we consider to be hillbillies or lesser
And
culture.
more or less, that's what the documentary went into about the hillbilly culture, was the
Yeah.
same idea.
Right.
And then it veered political for the rest of the,
I'm sure
the
it did,
documentary.
I know enough of those old back mountain folk that
Yeah,
Yeah.
and knowing your taste in music and where you would prefer to live, I can totally understand that. But it's a very interesting dynamic because you literally have a town that was made for the Manhattan Project in the middle of Tennessee, like the Tennessee mountains. And they literally built there because there's a low population density in the first place. But the people who are already there probably had a lot of things to say about it.
Yeah.
And so when you were talking about like knowing everybody in town, I'm like, well, that's perfect. His parents probably were some of the first workers.
can't trust
In
them
the
over
town.
there.
Yeah. We were brought in as part of the plant.
So whenever I've run Fate Accelerated before, it's been as one-shots. I once did a space opera game based off of the anime Space Dandy,
Okay.
which is a lot of fun. But it was great because it was basically a dungeon crawl through a space station where there were all sorts of Japanese yurei and yokai as ghosts and demons and stuff.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. My favorite one was the mildew liquor. You turn a corner and you come into a bathroom and there's just a random monster licking mildew off the walls. And people were like, nope, not going in there.
Not the liquor made from mildew.
No. There's
A monster licking mildew.
Yeah, so I did that game. And then I did a Weird West game that Johnny, Jeff, and Jeremy all played in. And
It was weird.
It was weird.
It was very entertaining, though.
Very entertaining.
It was very entertaining.
And I've done a few other ones. But this was my first attempt at horror with Fate.
The dice helped.
The dice
Yeah.
helped a lot. Yeah, you guys were rolling bad.
Yeah, we were. And the one thing I'm still not 100% understanding is how you build and decide what a success is in that.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned there's some guidance that talks about that you adjust the success based on the approach
Yeah.
and the person's
Yeah.
score on that approach.
Yeah, so if that's the case, I mean, it doesn't matter what your approach is. If it
Like, if it's a set 2 above whatever your approach is, it doesn't matter what you...
It's a rule of thumb. So
Okay.
basically, if the task isn't very tough at all, give it a mediocre. Or just tell the player they succeed without a roll. And that happened several times tonight.
yeah.
If you can think of at least one reason why the task is tough, pick +2. If the task is extremely difficult, pick +4. If the task is possibly difficult, go as high as you think makes sense. I was kind of following those guidelines.
Okay, you were going above what our
Yes.
setting was.
Yeah.
Not +2 as the target.
So an optional rule is called approach-related target numbers.
Okay.
And that is my default approach,
Yeah.
unless I want it to be more difficult or less difficult. The GM may wish to adjust the target number up or down by 1 or 2, depending on whether or not you choose a fitting or problematic approach. This makes things a bit more complex, but for some groups, it's worth it.
I don't know about making it more complex. It actually, even though we didn't see it, I think that way of doing it made it easier for us to hit the target numbers, but we just didn't.
It makes it more
Yeah.
complex.
Rather than if you needed a +5, there was one that got a +5, and that's because I used my stunt.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, it's more complex from a GMing perspective because if he has a +1, then the difficulty is +3. If you have a +3, your difficulty is +5.
Right.
So from my perspective, it's very difficult to bounce the numbers.
Yeah. But then once we understood that that's what you're going with, we were like, okay, we succeed, we failed, just because we knew we rolled.
Because we knew we needed a +2
you
on
look
the
at dice and you see what the dice say.
But also, I kind of tipped it in your favor by telling you that at the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I had just been like, okay, what's your approach?
Yeah.
What's your number? You probably wouldn't even notice I was doing it.
We might have noticed once we got to the skills challenge because we would have noticed a shifting target.
Especially because when we do Open D6, I set a standard target number.
Right, and that's what we would have assumed was the case.
Yeah.
So I did not do everything perfectly today. I should have been much better on compels.
That's what you get to earn fate points.
Yes. Compels let you earn fate points.
Which, if you think about it, at the end, even though it was going to be the end of the story anyway, that thing that Silas did probably should have earned him a fate point. Where he stole the knife from George and ran down the hallway. Because that encompassed all three of his aspects.
Yeah.
He's not a team player. He interjects with physical confrontation, and he's looking out for everybody else.
Yeah.
So yeah. If I had been better about making sure that compels were happening instead of just invokes, then it would have been a lot easier. But also that kind of feeds into the keeping the economy deflated.
Yes, and I think for our play style as players, we are very good at compelling ourselves to do things.
Right. Yes.
Even though, as a player, this doesn't really make sense to do, but as my character, this is what they would do.
And that's actually something that they talk about, is that you can compel yourself. So you can say, I'm going to do something that's against the thing, and then if I had remembered, I could have given you that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, as a player, that didn't make much sense for Silas to do that.
No.
But as Silas, that made perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a difference between compel and invoke. Invoke is you get the bonus from it, and compel is you're doing it because this is what your character would do, which gives you a future bonus.
So, I like the stunts.
Yeah.
Although for a one-shot, it would be nice to have at least maybe another stunt that you could use, rather than just the one.
Standard Fate allows up to 3 stunts.
Especially since you can use it only once.
Yes. Yeah. And I would normally give you 3 from the very beginning. If I was doing convention 1...
I think I remember you doing 3 for Weird West.
I would have given you all 5 aspects, and I would have given you 3 stunts as well. So it would have been much more fleshed out characters. Also, the refresh would have been at 3, so you would have had 3 fate points. So that would make things a lot easier.
Yeah.
Also, I wound up not using it because you guys were rolling so horribly, but I went into the Fate Horror Toolkit book, which is a really good read, and I found this optional rule called Failure with Style. If a character rolls at least...
We did that a lot.
Yeah, I know, that's why I didn't invoke
I don't think we did not fail with style.
If a character rolls at least 2 shifts less than their opposition, they fail with style. They gain a free invoke on an aspect of their choice, or they can remove free invoke of their choice. So I'm like...
we were invoking left and right.
I know, when I saw how bad the dice were, I'm like, I'm not
we actually might have survived.
Yeah.
We would have failed our way to survival.
Hey,
alright, that would have been pretty awesome. Like, that would have been...
There's a lot of executives that do that.
Yep.
Hey.
And people who work in the government. And
mystery men.
And teachers. Yeah.
A lot of game masters fail their way to the top.
No. You roll nothing but 6s. That's not failing.
I was rolling pretty horribly tonight, too. I had, one roll that was a -2.
He was rolling pretty bad today.
So, going back, and I've been listening to the start of the podcast.
Yeah.
Again, Terra Proximus. And from the start, it has been consistent. Jeff rolls horribly. Jordan rolls very well.
Well, at least I'm consistent.
At least we're both consistent.
And Jordan is consistent, too.
I'm not.
Wish Jordan were not.
My rolls are very inconsistent.
I think part of the issue is I don't roll half as much as the rest of you. I don't rely on dice as a GM. I don't think I've ever really relied on dice unless it was a combat situation.
Yes, but I'm remembering the combat of Terra Proximus specifically, and it was just nothing but oh, I have to re-roll 6s every single roll for every single combat roll. And it was like, what is going on? Every player at the table was like, come on, really?
And not only that,
What'd you roll to hit? A 38? What'd you roll to dodge? An 8?
That was the start of his red die as his wild die.
Yeah.
Well, and also I built the Jaguar people with 18 dice compared to Mini 6's standard 12 dice.
Yes.
So they were heavy hitters.
Yes.
So we were rolling 3 dice
To my 6.
to his 6.
That's my fault. He learned from me with Swinkles.
I did. Anyway, let's talk about Fate. Now, Aaron, you said that it was not your favorite mechanical.
No, I really don't mind the mechanic.
He just hated his dice.
I hated the way everything was rolling tonight because I don't think I succeeded. No, I succeeded on rolling the rock out of the way, which I didn't need to do.
Yeah.
I think that's the only success I had tonight.
So you were the jock.
Yep. Yep.
And
Your dice were true to character.
Yes, they were.
That's a committed player right there.
All in all, I like the idea of the mechanic. That's about all I can say.
I think if I had prepared better from a rule perspective and not a story perspective, I think that might have helped a little bit. But also, I think Fate is a game that gets better over multiple plays.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Like a short campaign, like you can really see things build up.
Yeah.
But it's a game that I've wanted to run as a campaign for a long time. There's so many games that you want to run as a campaign for a long time.
And there's a lot of
this
commercial games out there based off the Fate system.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the game we've probably talked about the most and not played.
Yeah.
So, like, actually playing it was kind of a priority for this year to get a one-shot in at one point or another.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it works really well for, like, street-level superheroes and, like, mad scientist, pulpy adventure kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Fate Accelerate does, yeah.
Yeah. The characters on the cover, like, you have a sky pirate, who's also part cat. You have an Avatar: The Last Airbender stand-in. And then you have a Harry Potter stand-in as well. So those are the kind of games that they want you to play with this system, generically speaking.
Makes sense.
And I love the building the bad guys in this. Like, you build your main big bad as like an actual character sheet, and then your small, easy to get rid of bad guys are like Sky Shark. I'm a shark, vulnerable belly. Those are its aspects. And then it's skilled. It's +2 at flying and biting, and -2 at anything that isn't flying or biting. That's its entire skill block.
Yeah, I like it.
And I love the approachability of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it for the 2600 Club. You never got around to the 2600 Club part of the game. But
Nope.
But we got around to the horror.
Yeah, we did.
I should have said at least one person needs like some sort of technical savvy kind of.
Yeah, we had no idea. It was like, what are
Yeah.
these wires? I don't care. I don't know.
Yeah.
My response, cut the line, shoot the phone.
Did you guys enjoy the like the horror aspects?
I did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed
yeah,
the horror
definitely.
aspects of the story.
I wish they had come in an episode earlier.
It was very hard because all of the horror stuff at the car happened before you got there,
Yeah.
and there was just the remains to find.
Yeah, which,
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't know what we're
With
looking at.
none of us
yeah.
being technical, it's a pile of electronic junk.
It's a pile of junk. There was a Captain Crunch whistle sitting right there in the pile of junk, but you wouldn't have known what you were looking at.
No.
So
No.
I didn't.
As a player, we would
Yeah.
have.
At that point, we would have.
Yeah. Where was that?
And
When the car was shifted backwards,
when
a
I
whole
saw a
bunch
pile of junk.
a bunch of stuff had rolled back.
Y'all didn't see anything inside the car, I did.
Which, correct me if I'm wrong, that Captain Crunch whistle would have been misplaced out of time.
Why?
Happened in the 80s.
No. Yeah, this was in the 70s.
The Captain Crunch whistle?
Phone Freaking started early.
Phone Freaking did, yeah.
They developed the blue box to emulate the whistle.
I just seem to remember when I was a kid seeing commercials advertising the Captain Crunch whistle in the cereal box.
And they might have brought it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Because Phone Freaking started to die out because the exchanges got updated to more digital approaches rather than the tone-based system that they were using.
Yeah, I feel like in Hackers they weren't using the whistle. They were playing a tone,
Yeah.
a different, like a series of tones.
Yeah, the one guy
Beats
had
into-
his tape recorder thing
Yeah.
that he would play into the phone
And he would
to get free long distance calls or whatever.
Yep.
There is a phone phreaker who goes by the name, he's passed away, but he went by the handle Joy Bubbles, and he had his name legally changed to Joy Bubbles.
That's weird.
Well, he was a very odd guy. Joy Bubbles actually was blind, and he had perfect pitch, so he could whistle the 2800 hertz call orally.
Huh. That's pretty cool.
And he was in the newspaper several times because first time in college, he started making friends because he would whistle up free phone calls for them internationally and everything like that. And so when they found out, he was like, he got his hand slapped essentially. And then second time, he was looking for a job in Tennessee, oddly enough. And so he would call up the phone company to report problems, and then he would tell them all sorts of ridiculous things he was doing, attempting to get them to hack his phone so that then he could ask for a job.
Uh-huh.
And so that stereotypical hacker story of you find the flaws and then you exploit them and you get the job to patch them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He was doing that. He worked as a troubleshooter for several years. So,
But I do know that this series of episodes reminded me of another one shot that y'all did when I wasn't there. I just listened to with the televisions.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very similar kind of feel to it.
honestly, I've been thinking a lot about how technology is its own gateway to horror.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a big theme for me right now for some reason, and I'm not quite sure why.
But it's interesting, too, how most of that, and just in contrast, most of that one-shot happened at night
Yes.
in game. And all the horror of this one happened, like, Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Early.
Daylight. But it was still very
Very
creepy.
scary.
Yeah. Very much some creep factor going on.
Yeah.
The interrupted telephone call was really creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Captain Crunch whistle started to be released in boxes in the 1960s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right, guys.
All right.
I think that's it for today.
Yep.
I'm going to have to try and think of more horror things that don't involve technology. So maybe some more body horror.
We've done other horror without technology, like Grin, the Psych Ward.
That was a
Grin
fun
was
one.
great.
That was a fun one.
Yeah, that was good. That one and
Ooh. 10 Candles.
10 Candles.
That was the body horror I was
Yeah.
thinking of. Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, it goes from like a 20,000 Leagues type story.
Yeah.
The Telezombies were great.
Telezombies.
All right, I'm putting a fork in it.
it's done.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Bone Throwers Theater. Thank you for listening to Bone Throwers Theater. We are releasing this podcast under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. That means you can share the podcast, but please do not modify it or try to gain financially from it. If you would like to visit our website, you can do so at bonethrowerstheater.com. If you would like to send us an email, you can do so at bonethrowerstheater@gmail.com. Our Twitter handle is bonethrowerstheater. You can also look us up on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And until next time, may the bones fall ever in your favor. This has been a Nerd Circle podcast production.